Today, we're talking about early parts of pregnancy that nobody prepares you for.
Bleeding. Welcome, Walders. I'm Christian.
And I'm Alicia, and today we're talking about early parts of pregnancy that nobody prepares you for.
Bleeding.
Which immediately sends you into a full panic mode because nobody ever says, hey, this might happen and it's okay.
Instead, you see blood and your brain goes straight to, this is it, it's over, I did something wrong.
So today we're going to talk about implantation bleeding, subchronic hemorrhages, miscarriage fears, and the emotional chaos that comes out with not knowing what is happening with your own body.
This episode is not meant to diagnose you. It's meant to say you are not alone and your fear makes sense.
The moment you see blood. Let's talk about that moment, because if you lived it, you know exactly what I mean. You go to the bathroom like normal, nothing feels off, nothing feels wrong, and all of a sudden you see it. Your heart drops instantly, your body goes cold, and you stare way too long, hoping it'll disappear if you didn't just move. And suddenly your brain starts replaying everything you've done the last week. The coffee, the stares, the grocery bags, the laugh that felt a little too hard. Bleeding in early pregnancy can mean a lot of different things, and that's what makes it so terrifying, because it's not knowing. That's where the fear lives.
Alicia, did you happen to have any bleeding in any of your pregnancies?
Yes, every single one of them.
Did you tell anyone right away or did you keep it to yourself?
With my second one, I told my doctor at my first appointment, but I did not tell anybody when I first saw it, because in my head, it was already a miscarriage. So I was mentally preparing to be told it was a miscarriage when I went to that first appointment. So when I went to that first appointment, that is when I found out that I actually had a cyst on my ovary that bursted and it caused me to bleed. Now with my third son, I had implantation bleeding. I suspected that it was the same thing, or not implantation bleeding, it was subchronic hemorrhage. And that's when they told me about it, and that's when I learned about it. So I've had it with every one of my pregnancies. It's very scary, even though I am very knowledgeable in this area and I know how it works and why it does it. All that knowledge goes out the window and you completely forget and you panic. So I am going to tell you this as kindly as possible. Keep our information in your back pocket, and when you forget, throw it at your husband so he can remind you to calm down.
Yeah, I do think that's actually a really good point, because I told Josh a lot of things and I was like, if I start freaking out, I need you to kind of be my voice of reason when I can't.
Because when we panic, we forget everything.
Yeah.
We forget everything, and we don't want to, everything that we know just goes out the window. And sometimes you just need that voice of reason to say, hey, remember, this is what it could be. Let's take a deep breath. Let's calm down a little bit. Now, I'm not telling you not to go to the ER. Definitely go to the ER if you feel to. Definitely call your doctor if you need to. But sometimes we just need to calm down, take a deep breath, and then go.
I did have bleeding as well. It was very light though, so that's typically how I knew I was pregnant, was I would have like a spotting, and then immediately after the spotting, I was like, okay, I need to give myself a day, and then I knew the test would turn positive. So, I mean, it'd still be like a squinter, but like I knew things were happening. Just because usually like if it was my period, it would come on like later. I was pretty good about like the days and stuff.
So did you ever experience a subchronic hemorrhage?
I did not know.
Okay.
I never had any bleeding in actual pregnancy. I was blessed enough to not have to deal with that.
So I'll even teach you about what it is then. So what a subchronic hemorrhage is, it is a blood pocket on the outside of the uterus. It could be in the sac of the baby, but I don't think it is. I think generally it's on the outside of the uterus. Every OB I've ever talked to, every ultrasound technician I've talked to have all verified it's on the outside of the uterus. What it is it's a blood pocket. And sometimes that pocket will burst and you'll bleed. Sometimes it dissolves back into the uterus, or sometimes it heals and you just never know. And sometimes it'll come out as brown blood. Now, sometimes it is a lot of blood. So it is very scary, because sometimes it can fill up a pad. Sometimes there is clotting because of the tissue. And sometimes it's just with a wipe. So what I will say is that if you have any bleeding, if it is followed by clotting or cramping, I will always suggest you to call your OB or go to the ER to get verification. Always try to stay calm, because unfortunately, bleeding in early stages of pregnancy is normal.
Yes, it definitely
Yeah.
can be. I think most women experience implantation bleeding, and we usually think it's our period coming on because it kind of mimics, when you first do start getting your period. I've met a lot of women who actually had like light bleeding in early pregnancy. They actually thought it was their period, but it usually happens early, like very early, like right around the time that you found out you're pregnant. Sometimes so light you question if it was even real, like whether you actually did have that. And then the timing is crucial. It can happen right when you expect your period. So you're stuck with the mental loop of, am I pregnant? Am I not? Is my body gaslighting me? Typically, implantation bleeding is short lived. Like, it's lighter than a period, like a lot lighter. My experience is it was just like when you wiped. That was my experience personally, but I have had somebody tell me that theirs was a lot more. I think it's pretty normal. But let's be honest, knowing that doesn't really help in the moment because emotionally blood equals danger every single time. Alicia, did you think it was your period?
For implantation,
Yeah.
um, the only implantation bleeding I had was brown, so I did not know exactly what that was. I immediately thought that there was some kind of infection going on,
Oh
so
yeah.
that was a learning curve for me. But I really can't say if I had implantation bleeding because I felt like what took my mind was the cyst or the hemorrhage.
Yeah.
Um,
Because you had heavier bleeding.
yeah. So how soon after you had that implantation bleeding did you realize it wasn't a normal period to
Almost
make you take a
immediately
test?
after, with each of them, mostly because I have this weird instinct where I knew I was pregnant before I knew I was pregnant. Like before I could even tell on a test, I knew. It was like an instinct.
Hmm.
And the same thing with Josh. It was very cool actually, just because like it was very cool that my husband and I were both like kind of on the same wavelength. But when I would get the implantation bleeding, it was almost like, oh, here it comes, like for me. Now, I feel like for most women, it wouldn't be like that because like not everybody's like me and is like a weirdo who knows like what's going on. And so I feel like I definitely didn't spiral or anything. In fact, it was actually a pretty good confirmation for me because like I had been suspecting. In all reality, we weren't trying for most of our kids. It was just kind of like the luck of the draw.
But the first time you had it, do you feel like you went to more of a spiral or
I
did
did
you
not.
always know?
No. Mm-mm. I was looking out for it. I was the Google queen. I knew everything. So, I mean,
So that was
I was an oddball though. I will say that I'm probably the odd one out because I never worried. I did have a miscarriage, and with that one specifically, I didn't, I found out at like 6 weeks that I had miscarried. And so it took a while to find out, and like it took a while for me to start bleeding. So for me specifically with that, I'm a serial tester. Like I love seeing the lines double, but like with that one, I saw the lines like not doubling in the way that I knew I had seen them before. At one point, it looked like they were going down, and when I went to the doctor, they didn't see anything at 6 weeks. And so it was he gave me the option to take something to go ahead and pass it, but it was likely that I was going to pass on its own, so I did end up letting it pass. But with that, I spiraled hard. But as far as healthy pregnancies, I didn't have much bleeding at all, so I was very blessed.
I find that very interesting because I feel a lot of women, when they see that implantation bleeding, the only thing that stops them from going down a spiral is if they can get that first ultrasound.
See, to me, it was always the test because my tests would get darker. And if my tests were getting darker, I didn't stress too hard because I knew that it was likely that everything was okay in there. I mean, I think maybe there was a moment of panic, maybe, I don't know, but in all reality, I don't think I did. I think I was pretty chill about it just because fairly in tune with my body, and like I had symptoms.
And you also knew, you found out pretty early. Like you usually were about 4 weeks.
Oh, before that.
So you knew from your own research that implantation bleeding
Yes.
happens between 5 or 6 weeks. So you kind of knew what to expect.
Yes. Well, mine always happened before I even missed my period. So it would happen at like 10 days. Like for people who are trying, they'll know this. So I usually had it at like 10 days post ovulation or around then. And like that was pretty typical for me. You know what I mean? But I never really had it anytime after that. I did cramping is what stressed me out, was the cramping. But I always told myself, okay, if I'm cramping and I'm bleeding, then I'm going to start to worry, you know, because I mean, the cramping's normal, the bleeding and cramping, from my understanding, wasn't normal.
Yeah.
So, do you want to talk about subchronic hemorrhaging? Because I don't really understand what that is.
Yes. So let's talk about the phrase that sends everyone into an immediate spiral: chronic hemorrhage. First off, why does it sound like a medical emergency every single time? A subchronic hemorrhage is essentially a pocket of blood on the outside of the uterus. And here's the part that most people don't hear: it is uncommonly common. These blood pockets can do a couple different things. Sometimes they slowly dissolve back into the uterus and heal on their own, and you never even know that they're there. Other times they release or burst, which causes bleeding. And the bleeding can look dramatic, sometimes heavy. Even through the pregnancy, it's still okay. Most women don't even know that they have them unless they are pointed out on ultrasound while it's healing, or if they start bleeding and they panic and go to the ER. That's what makes it so scary. Not because it's rare, but because nobody tells you that this can happen. You might bleed, you might pass clots, and you can still go on to have a healthy pregnancy. But emotionally, you're living ultrasound to ultrasound, holding your breath every time you wipe, flinching at every cramp, and trying to stay hopeful while protecting your heart. If this is you, we know exactly how you feel.
And we see you. Did the diagnosis itself cause more anxiety than the symptoms?
I think the blood caused more anxiety than sometimes I don't think knowing it helps.
Yeah.
Knowing what it is one thing, but unfortunately, every doctor is going to give you every worst case scenario.
Yeah.
When I had my daughter, I had a very big subchronic hemorrhage that bursted with her. They put on my paperwork that she was a threatened miscarriage. Obviously, she's here and she's doing well, but doctors typically put the worst case scenario on there because if it happens, then it's kind of like, well, we told you what to expect, and if it didn't, then great, it didn't happen. So when you hear things like that, like, oh, it could lead to a miscarriage or it could lead to this, I don't think the diagnosis makes it feel better. I think it makes it feel better when the bleeding stops. And sometimes people bleed longer with these subchronic hemorrhages, and some people only bleed one time. I think no matter what, bleeding in pregnancy is always going to cause anxiety because it's unnatural. You don't expect it. Nobody tells you that this is a common thing. We prepare ourselves for the morning sickness. We prepare ourselves for the ligament stretching, the back pain, the kicks. We prepare ourselves for all this, but nobody tells you what else can happen. So when it does happen, that's when the spiral happens, unfortunately.
Well, did reassurance help, or was it only briefly helping?
Like reassurance that it was okay.
Yeah. Like the ultrasound reassurance.
Yes, seeing my baby on ultrasound did help. But I think what helped was when I saw that she was growing week after week. Once I got to that stage of, 11 weeks when they say you're less likely to have a miscarriage, I think that's when I calmed down. I found out about my subchronic hemorrhage with her when I was 6 weeks pregnant. So I knew that they put in my records that she was a potential threatened miscarriage. So every week, as long as I saw that she was growing, I was fine. But if I didn't see her,
How would you cope if you didn't have an ultrasound studio?
I would probably be going to an urgent care or something, or I would
Every
probably be
week?
taking pregnancy
Well,
tests
like
every day.
what's a realistic way that we can help our listeners cope with it? Because like, I mean, I'm not trying to be hateful or anything.
I completely understand.
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
Like what would your advice be?
my advice is to try to understand that it's common. I would try to say, watch the bleeding if you feel like it's starting to dim down. Also, if you feel like that you are just worried and you're not getting that peace of mind, get a hold of your doctor and see if they can get you in and see if they can help you. Get your blood drawn and get your ACGs drawn and see if they're continuing to go up. One of the jobs of your doctor is to help you. And so if for some reason they don't help, you can always call an urgent care. You can always see if there is a elective ultrasound in your area. There are moms that will go to these places just to kind of get a peace of mind. It's up to you if you want to spend that money on it. I know it's helped some of our moms, but I really don't think there is a way to cope with it or to reassure it until you know everything's okay. I think once that anxiety hits, that anxiety's there. It's kind of just like it's a trauma response. Once that anxiety's there, you're just going to continue thinking, like, you're going to think worst case scenario. That is human design. I think that once something like that happens, we just turn from optimistic to pessimistic, and it's just hard to get back on that. So, but I do think the more pregnancies you have, the more you are knowledgeable of it. So I think that if it happens on another pregnancy, there's just no way around that anxiety. I think that's just something that's going to come with it. Having a good partner, a support system, somebody to talk about with, if you have a good doctor.
I think we should move on.
Yeah.
If that's okay. Just because, I don't know if we're going to get any more from it other than...
That's fine. I didn't know what else to say about it. That's why I was rambling.
Miscarriage fear and the waiting game. We can't talk about bleeding without talking about the miscarriage fear, because once that thought enters your mind, it doesn't leave quietly. Every twinge feels suspicious. Every bathroom trip feels heavy. Your body suddenly doesn't feel like a safe place anymore. And the waiting is brutal. Waiting for labs, waiting for ultrasounds, waiting for answers that feel impossibly slow when your heart is racing. Here's what we want you to hear clearly. Being scared does not mean that you're negative. It means you care, and no amount of worrying can cause or prevent an outcome. You did not fail your body. You did not fail your baby. Did you feel guilty for hoping and fearing at the same time?
Yes.
You did?
Because because of the stress. I already had in my head that I lost the baby, so I think that I was already coping and preparing to be told that, which I think is what everybody would do, is you see blood and you're automatically saying, I've lost it, now I'm going to start preparing for it. And it kind of...
Try to lose that connectivity you had.
Yeah, you're trying that excitement goes away and you're just trying to prepare yourself. So I think that also plays into the anxiety when you're pregnant, because now you feel guilty that you've already did that.
Yeah.
So pregnancy is just a mind game, man.
It is a mind game. Did reassurance help you?
I had a really good doctor. I felt like I sounded like a
broken
record with him, and every time he asked me, I would tell him over and over and over, and he would sit there and listen to me every time. If it wasn't for him, not even with just the bleeding, but when I told him about my first child and how everything I went with him, he listened to it every time, and he made me feel like I was not as crazy as I felt. And I will always appreciate that, because when I got pregnant with my third son, I don't know if I was just so exhausted from already having a baby that I was just too exhausted to have that same stress with this baby. But I do feel like
was there anything your doctor could have said that would have made things clearer for you, that would have made the stress go away, that you wish that they would have said?
No, because I was also pregnant with him during the midst of COVID. So because I got COVID with him during the same time, they were also worried of what it could do to his heart, because at that time they didn't know what COVID would do with pregnant women. So there was also that level of stress, because I was in there every week for an NST so they could monitor his heart. So that on top of the bleeding, I blamed myself for it, because I wondered if it was because of the career field I was in that I did this to myself. And so I think that's just where talking to my doctor really helped, and he validated, and he never faulted me or shamed me when I felt like it was my fault. Like one of the bleedings happened when I was working a fire and I thought it was my fault, which it probably was because you're definitely not supposed to be out working a fire when you're pregnant. But he just told me like, you got to stand up for yourself, So it's just, I think that I got very lucky with my healthcare team. There's a lot of women that don't have that. There's a lot of women that go so long without their healthcare team that,
Well, it's really cool that they held space for you.
yeah.
For all outcomes.
Yeah, it was really good. And I feel like if you can get on a really, I've seen on Facebook recently, there's a lot of pregnancy support pages where people will ask all these questions, and sometimes there's really good advice on there from moms that will help. And if you're active on Facebook and you're in these groups, take what they say with a grain of salt, but also that could be a really good community for you, especially in our area where our moms aren't getting seen. It might help. I don't know if you were ever a part of any of those pages.
I'm not in the military.
No, like there's like pregnancy groups. There's like some that are like babies due in 2027 and
oh yeah. No, I've been in those pages for sure. Yeah, no.
We want to say this part gently. Some of you are listening while still waiting. Some of you are sitting in uncertainty, and some of you are listening with loss sitting heavy in your chest. If that's you, this space is for you too. Your grief is valid, your love is real, and your story matters. And if you're still in the not knowing stage, you do not have to pretend you're okay. You're allowed to hope and protect your heart at the same time.
If you're pleading in early pregnancy and listening right now, hear this. You are not dramatic, you are not weak, and you are not alone. Ask the questions, advocate for yourself, and trust your instincts. Uncertainty does not automatically mean the worst is happening. You're doing a great job.
We thank you for listening to this episode. I know it's not as comical and uplifting as the other ones have been, but we do feel like this was information that we wanted to get out there. We do live in an area where a lot of our moms are not getting seen until late into their second trimester, and I see these concerns all the time. And I am just hoping that if we address this, maybe we can just help. If we can just help one mom calm down and help her with her stress, then I feel like my mission was complete with this episode. So thank you for listening.
We will see you next time.